Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something really critical, those incredibly sensitive decisions made in court, especially when the main evidence comes from a child. It makes you think, right, how do we possibly ensure fairness, accuracy when the stakes are just so incredibly high? So our mission today is to unpack this fascinating news study out of Turkey. It asks a really pointed question. Can an AI like ChatGPT actually judge if a child's statement is credible in a forensic case? And what we found looking into this, well, it might really challenge how you think about AI's abilities. It reveals some serious limits right now, and maybe something fundamental about what needs to stay human in our justice system. Okay, so let's set the stage a bit. Why is figuring out the credibility of a child's testimony so absolutely vital in legal stuff?
Well, witness testimony is huge in court decisions.
Yeah.
It's often the heaviest piece of evidence, like influencing maybe 85% of cases. And this gets even more intense in child sexual abuse cases because often there's very little physical evidence or
Yeah.
none at all. So you end up in that really difficult statement versus statement kind of
And one
situation.
word against another.
Exactly. And the scale is
Yeah.
significant. Globally, something like 17% of girls report experiencing sexual abuse in childhood. In Turkey, where this research happened, official numbers from 2023 showed over 25,000 children reported as victims of sexual offenses.
Wow. And the consequences of getting it wrong? I mean, a false positive, believing a story that isn't true, or a false negative, dismissing one that is true?
Both are devastating. Trauma, life-changing for the child, obviously, but also for the accused, for families,
Yeah.
everyone. And it's important, the study points this out, that credibility here means believability.
Mm.
It's not exactly the same as historical 100% accuracy. We don't always expect perfect recall from kids, right? Things like suggestibility, maybe they don't fully grasp everything or just, haven't developed strong storytelling skills yet.
Makes sense.
So that really highlights why we need objective, evidence-based ways to assess these statements to get beyond just gut feelings.
Okay, so if gut feelings aren't enough, what methods do professionals actually use for this? What's the established approach?
One of the main tools, especially in child abuse cases, is something called criteria-based content analysis, CBCA for short.
Mm.
It's kind of the analytical engine within a broader framework called Statement Validity Assessment, or SVA.
CBCA,
Yeah.
okay. What's the thinking behind it?
It's based on this idea, the Undeutsch hypothesis. Sounds fancy, but the core idea is pretty straightforward. It suggests that stories rooted in real lived experiences tend to be, well, richer and more complex, both in quality and quantity, than stories that are made up.
Interesting. So it's not like a polygraph, not a lie detector then.
No, definitely not.
It sounds more like a checklist almost.
Yeah.
Systematically looking for certain qualities in the story itself.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, exactly. It involves coding an interview transcript looking for 19 specific criteria. These are grouped into categories. Like general characteristics, does it have a logical flow? Specific contents are there details about the context. Does the child recount conversations? And motivation-related contents, things like, does the child correct themselves spontaneously or admit they don't remember something?
Okay.
The more of these criteria you find generally, the more support there is for the statement's credibility.
That sounds pretty thorough. But you mentioned challenges earlier. Even with a structured system like CBCA, what are the persistent difficulties humans face when using it?
Yeah, you're right to ask. The big one is consistency between different evaluators. It's called inter-rater reliability, or IRR. Studies might show decent agreement on the total CBCA score, the final number. But that often hides the fact that there's, frankly, poor agreement on some individual criteria, especially those that need a lot of subjective judgment, like what counts as an unusual detail, or details characteristic of the offense. It's inherently fuzzy.
Right, like judging art. One person's unusual is another's normal.
Exactly. And this gets even trickier when you have people from different backgrounds, psychology, social work, law, all trying to apply the same criteria.
Okay, so given those human inconsistencies, it starts to make sense why researchers would think, maybe AI could help here. How did this study actually bring AI into the picture? What was the setup?
Well, this study is pretty groundbreaking, certainly in Turkey. They directly compare the judgments of two human experts, a forensic psychologist and a social worker, both CBCA trained against ChatGPT, the GPT-4o Plus version.
A head-to-head comparison.
Pretty much. They took 65 anonymized transcripts from actual forensic interviews with child sexual abuse victims, and all three, the two humans and the AI, evaluated each transcript independently.
How do you even train an AI like ChatGPT for something so specialized? It's not like asking it to write a poem.
Right. They used what's called prompt engineering. Basically, they fed the AI a lot of information. Foundational CBCA literature, detailed explanations of all 19 criteria, the scoring rules, everything.
So giving it the textbook, essentially.
Yeah, and then some. They did preliminary tests with a few other statements first, giving the AI feedback to try and make it more sensitive to context, more accurate. And importantly, they told the AI it had to point to specific parts of the transcript to justify its scores, just like human experts are supposed to do.
Okay, and they use proper stats to check the results.
Oh yeah, rigorous stuff. Interclass correlation coefficient ICC and Cohen's kappa to measure the level of agreement.
Let's start with the humans then. How well did the psychologist and the social worker agree with each other?
Generally, pretty well. For most of the criteria, 15 out of the 19, the ICC scores showed good to excellent agreement. Things like spotting when a child admitted not remembering something or pardoning the perpetrator, those showed really high agreement, which is encouraging.
Okay, mostly consistent. But you mentioned some criteria are notoriously tricky for humans. Did that problem show up here too?
I absolutely did. Yeah, that challenge persisted. For logical structure and details characteristic of the offense, there was no statistically significant agreement between the two human experts.
Wow.
In fact, for details characteristic of the offense, it was worse than just random disagreement. A statistic called Krippendorf's alpha was actually negative.
Negative. What does that even mean?
It suggests they weren't just randomly disagreeing, but systematically interpreting that criterion in fundamentally different ways. It really underlines those known weaknesses in CBCA itself.
Okay, now the million-dollar question. What happened when they threw the AI's evaluations into the mix? How did its agreement look compared to the humans?
This is where things got really stark. The reliability just plummeted dramatically. When they compared the AI scores to the humans, the agreement coefficients often fell into ranges labeled poor. Sometimes they were even negative.
Negative again, like with the human disagreement on that one criterion.
Exactly. For example, the agreement between the AI and the social worker on logical structure had a negative ICC. Same for quantity of details compared to the psychologist.
Yeah.
And remember, negative doesn't just mean no agreement. It suggests the AI's reasoning, its way of judging these things, was fundamentally different from how the human experts were thinking. It wasn't even on the same page.
So the big takeaway here regarding AI's current ability, what does this study tell us?
I think the conclusion is pretty clear and honestly profound. There's a massive gap right now between the complex, context-aware reasoning humans bring to this and what this kind of AI using prompt engineering can do. It simply cannot reliably replicate expert human judgment in this incredibly nuanced task of credibility assessment. Not yet, anyway.
But you said it wasn't a total failure. The AI showed some success on certain criteria. What was going on there?
Right, that's the interesting part. It did show moderate success on criteria that were more concrete, things you could maybe spot more easily through specific words or patterns in the text.
Like spotting direct quotes.
Exactly. Things like accounts of subjective mental state, where the child says, I felt scared, or reproduction of conversation. The AI was okay at identifying those.
So it can find the keywords, maybe the structure, but it misses the feeling, the meaning underneath, the why.
Precisely. You've nailed it. Yeah. The AI is doing very sophisticated pattern matching, classifying words and phrases, but it's not understanding in the human sense. All that implicit meaning, the cultural stuff, the psychological reasons why a story might seem inconsistent but still be true, the stuff human experts pick up on intuitively, seems totally beyond this model's current reach.
It's a surface-level analysis.
That's a good way to put it. It lacks that deep, contextual, integrative thinking you need here. And, this isn't unique to this study. We see similar challenges across AI and forensics. It's great at crunching data fast, but interpreting the output, making decisions that account for context, privacy, potential bias, that's still very much a human job. The whole black box problem, not knowing how the AI reached its conclusion, is a big issue too.
Okay, so if it can't be the judge, does that mean AI, like these large language models, has no place at all in forensic evaluations? Is it just not useful here?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that at all. The study is clear. It can't be no autonomous judge. But could it be a helpful assistant? Absolutely. The potential is definitely there, but in a supportive role.
An assistant. How would that work, practically?
Well, imagine an LLM scanning a huge, long transcript. It could quickly flag every section that might be relevant to specific CBCA criteria. That saves the human expert enormous amounts of time, letting them focus on the actual analysis.
Okay, like a high-tech highlighter.
Kind of. Or think about it as a second reader. It could systematically point out potential contradictions, timeline issues, or maybe unusual details that a human under pressure might just miss. That could help make evaluations more consistent, reduce some of that variability between raters we talked about.
Right, catching things that might slip through the cracks.
Exactly. And one more thing, imagine using it for training. An AI could be programmed to find clear textbook examples of each CBCA criterion within practice transcripts. That could be a really powerful tool for teaching new practitioners.
So it's about making the humans better at their job, more efficient, more consistent maybe, but not replacing them. The final call stays human.
That is absolutely the critical point. The ultimate responsibility, interpreting the nuances, understanding the child's context, considering things like nonverbal cues that aren't even in the transcript, making that final judgment that must remain with the human expert. That ability to integrate everything, the empathy, the understanding of human psychology. That's something AI, at least for now, just doesn't have.
Makes sense. Now, you mentioned limitations. No study is perfect, right? What are the important caveats we need to keep in mind about this specific research?
Definitely. First, this was just one AI model, ChatGPT, and it
Hmm.
was set up using prompt engineering. Other models, maybe one specifically fine-tuned on forensic data, might perform differently, so we can't overgeneralize.
Okay.
Second, a big one, it only used written transcripts. All those nonverbal cues, tone of voice, hesitation, body language were completely missing for the AI and the human raters in this setup, which isn't how it always works in practice.
Right, a transcript loses so much information.
It really does. And third, there's the cultural context. CBCA was mostly developed in Western cultures. Applying it in Turkey, as this study did, raises questions about cultural nuances in storytelling that weren't really examined here.
Those are really important points. So, considering all that, where does this leave us? What are the next steps for research in this area? What should scientists be looking into now?
Well, there are a few key directions. We definitely need to test AI models that are specifically trained or fine-tuned for this kind of task, using large, diverse data sets, not just prompt-engineered ones. And crucially, future work should look at multimodal AI systems. Systems that can analyze not just text, but also audio to pick up on vocal emotion, pauses, and maybe even video for nonverbal cues. That gets closer to what humans actually do.
So, giving the AI more senses in a way.
Exactly. Also, exploring how AI can handle or adapt to different cultural narrative styles is vital. And maybe the most important piece underlying all of this is the need to develop really strong ethical guidelines and technical safeguards alongside the technology. We need clear rules about data, transparency in algorithms, maybe secure sandbox environments for testing, especially when dealing with such vulnerable populations.
Absolutely critical.
We need to be responsible as we explore this.
So, when we boil it all down, this deep dive into AI and judging child testimony, it really shines a light on something fundamental, doesn't it?
I think so. It shows that while AI is amazing at finding patterns, at processing information quickly, evaluating something as sensitive and human as a child's testimony, well, that's not just a technical problem to be solved. It's deeply human work. It requires that expert judgment, that empathy, that ability to see the whole picture, the context, things AI currently can't replicate.
And that leaves us and you, our listener, with something to really think about. In this world that's becoming more and more driven by AI, where do we draw the line? What are those tasks, those decisions that absolutely must stay human, demanding that unique blend of judgment, empathy, and awareness that right now no algorithm can touch?